with last year's state runner-up and Warren in the JFK Eagles. Talk to me, Ty, about what they're losing, what they're coming back with, and some names to look forward to for the Eagles this year.
Yeah, JFK, the only team that we represent out of the North Coast League, which JFK is respectively. And JFK last year was 9-3, made that trip to the state championship, falling in the Division 7 state championship to New Brennan. And out of the players lost, I don't think you can go any further without saying Cam Hollabaugh, Anthony, and all the records and all the things that young man has been able to do for JFK. It's going to be the big loss that everyone immediately is going to talk about when talking JFK football.
And I saw on Facebook today he has officially moved into Walsh, by the way. So we can't wish enough good luck to Cam as he continues his career on the football field and the baseball field, both at Walsh University.
Yeah, and I mean, both sides of the football field too. Has a huge impact as quarterback, had a huge impact as a linebacker last year too. So you're losing both of those big parts on your offense, but you're returning a lot of players too on that offense, and a lot of players that were just in that baseball state championship game that came away winners. One of the big name guys that I'm talking about is Caleb Hadley, who was a big name guy in that state championship game, coming back as a sophomore, I believe this year, or as a junior, I believe this year. And it's going to be interesting to see with him stepping into that role, most likely going to be stepping into as that new quarterback for JFK, if he has that same type of success, because JFK was a very young team, both on the football field and on the baseball team last year, and they're returning a lot of those guys. Other guys to look at: Will Toth, offensive lineman; Patrick Valen, another offensive lineman; Eddie Kiernan, another offensive lineman. They're pretty much returning their entire O-line that was there last year, that team that got them to the state championship. So having that entire O-line, you're just doing a switch of the quarterback now, albeit that quarterback is a pretty big name at that school. Right. But if Caleb Hadley can step in there and have some of the same production that Hollabaugh was able to do, I think this is a JFK team that'll be just fine on offense.
Well, I think you ask a lot of coaches in the area, they'll all tell you it's better to be young in the skill position than young in the offensive line. And they're returning almost their whole offensive line. They've got all the experience back. So I think that they're sitting a little bit more comfortable than you would if you lost, say you lost all your offensive line to graduation and you return a lot of your skill position players. In that situation, then you're really thinking, well, yeah, but who's going to block for them? Now you at least have your front there, and you're going to make life as easy as possible for your skill position players that you're putting in new positions.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think as far as Hadley's concerned, I mean, he's a gamer, man. He's already won a state championship in baseball. So he's been through those pressure cooker situations. He played last year a little bit too in the state championship game for football. So, I mean, this is a kid that has a young man that has all the experience you need, big game experience you need to step into this role. And I think from what we saw too, especially towards the end of the season, sports season, all of school year last year, towards that baseball season when they were in that state championship game, you saw this young man really start to mature as a person too. And I think going into football season this year and going into a junior year, I think you're going to see this young man really step into a role. And I think he's been ready to step into this role. I think being groomed under Cam Hollabaugh, and it looked like those two built a real close relationship over the couple of seasons that they played together. I expect big things from Hadley coming out of JFK.
Yeah, and one of the things about Hadley and being in that baseball team is, we've talked about it before, success breeds success. I mean, the standard is there. He knows the standard to win a state championship, and it's going to trickle down. I mean, obviously the football team's already been to a state championship game, so they know what it takes to get there too. But every time that you have an athlete that goes and succeeds like that, and it goes to the next sport in line, it always trickles down. The standard always trickles down. And you're going to have leaders that kind of know what it takes to get to that level. So you got to be optimistic if you're a JFK fan, despite what they're losing.
Yeah, and a correction too. Hadley is a sophomore, not a junior. So that is a correction on my part. So a freshman last year. So as a freshman, already has 2 state title games of experience, won one of them in baseball, and he's coming into this season as a sophomore quarterback for this JFK team. It is going to be definitely a dynamic for this young man, but I definitely think he's ready. For as young as he is, he's one of those guys that's mature up here, and that's important.
I feel like sophomore quarterbacks has become like a theme for us. The last 6 teams we've talked about yesterday and today have been sophomore quarterbacks.
And you know what, Anthony? I point to the guys too. I point to the schools such as Springfield that did it with Bo Brungard. Fitch did it a little bit with Sherwood. But these guys, these schools that started putting these quarterbacks in a year early and putting them in as a sophomore that are having tremendous success their junior year. We still have to see both Sherwood and Brungard their senior year yet. But I mean, we both know what they were able to do last year. And that was, you could point a lot of that to having that 1 year under their belt already.
Yeah, it's huge. And it's, some coaches make the decision. Some coaches are forced into the decision. But either way, it's going to pay dividends down the road, knowing that you're going to have someone that's going to have, when he gets to his senior year of football, he's going to have 2 years already under his belt, starting under center as a quarterback.
And I think it's more appealing to coaches to think of an offensive scheme where the biggest part of your offense, that guy that makes everything go, you can design an offense for the next 3 years for instead of the next 2. You could kind of play around, get a little bit more creative when you have that extra year of things to figure out. Okay, I have this guy throwing the ball. Here's some plays we can design in the passing game for the next 3 years to go off of.
But you do have to go through some of the growing pains of having a young quarterback. So if you can be patient through that, then you're going to be fine.
Yeah. And I mean, some of those quarterbacks too, they'll take big jumps their sophomore years, and some of them can even get you to the dance into the playoffs their first year as well. And that's where you really start to draw that line and separate the really special ones from the good ones.
Yeah. And Caleb Hadley, we've seen him in his freshman year, and he's proven he catches on to varsity speed really quick. So he's not going to have too much of a learning curve when he's thrown into the starting quarterback role.
No, and I mean, it has to have tremendous confidence in the fact that he has pretty much his whole line coming back too. So he doesn't have to worry. He knows his guys up front are going to protect him. And we know how good that offensive line for JFK was last year. One of the best, I would think, in D7 at protecting Hollabaugh. So Hadley should be at least taking a deep breath and a sigh of relief knowing that he has a very good O-line still in front of him this year.
And he's going to be doing a lot of running in that offensive scheme. So he better be ready for that. Talk about their defense, what they're returning on their defense, and what things to look forward to on that side of the ball for JFK.
Guys like Mike Gamino and Cam Hollabaugh and Jesse Likens are going to be hard to replace on defense. Gamino on that D-line, Hollabaugh a linebacker, and Likens was their defensive back. So that's 3 holes on each line of defense for your defense this year. So you got your D-line missing somebody, you got your linebacker core missing someone, and you have Likens missing at a defensive back, and you have Nick Fortley too, another defensive back that you're missing. So you have a couple of holes, but there's some guys that stepped up too, and some guys we saw that played both baseball and football that have just been to 2 state championships game coming away with one of them. And one of those guys I'm looking at right off the bat is Alex DeSalvo at defensive back. I mean, this is a very fast kid, played center field for the JFK Eagles and part of that 11-man squad that won the title baseball-wise. He was a huge part of that playing center field, but also a huge part of that team's defense last year that made it to the state championship game, and part of that team's defense that held opponents under 20 points per, just over 18 in the regular season and all of last year, actually. And DeSalvo, one of those guys that is just a ball hawk, can keep the ball away from some of your best receivers too. On top of that, you got Ambrose Hozo, that linebacker, Eddie Kiernan, a defensive lineman that's going to wreak havoc on quarterbacks and running backs this year, as Kiernan is one of those guys that can get to the quarterback and he can get to the running back on that D-line. Just a strong, brutal man up front. Mike Morrow, a linebacker, and Aiden Rossi, a linebacker. And that's one thing I will say. You lose Cam Hollabaugh, but that linebacking core for JFK was so strong last year, and a lot of those players took to Cam and really learned, I think, a lot under Cam. And I think that dynamic of having Rossi, Morrow, and Hozo this year is going to be so good out of those linebackers, and you're going to see them just stuff the run so much this year. Yeah,
and then, excuse me, you add Kiernan there in the in the line, and I love the adjective you used, brutal, because the defensive line play that he gives, not just, I mean, he's great on the offense, but then he like flips a switch on defense, and all of a sudden, instead of protecting guys, he's out to really put a hurt on some people. I mean, just an absolute monster to deal with on the defensive line. A lot of offensive line had a lot of trouble last year trying to keep him on their side of the line of scrimmage. Really good penetration, really good hands, really good drive from his legs. Just a prototypical defensive lineman that you're going to see cause a lot of problems at the line of scrimmage this year.
Yeah, and I mean, the good thing with JFK's defense, they're returning 6 of their 7 front 7 from last year, with the one loss being Cam Hollabaugh, but that defense itself was really good. Cam was special. I'll give you that. Cam was a special type of player, but that defense itself was really good. And if you're telling me I'm returning 6 of the 7 guys, I'm pretty confident. And also knowing, yeah, I lost some guys in my secondary, but I got Alex Salvo back there as my guy, my one guy that I could count on down in the defensive backfield. This is a defense that's still going to be just as good, I think, as last year.
Yeah, and you know what? I'll just say it. Cam's legacy, it's not done yet, because I think when you're that special, you're also defined by how good you leave a program when you leave it. And I think how they do this year and how they lead and what they take away from those years with Cam Hollabaugh is going to even write more pages in his legacy at JFK, even though he's not physically on the field.
Yeah, I think so as well. And I mean, yeah, we already know all the records that he held there in so many different sports and all the things he did, how many date playoff runs he made his senior year. I mean, state championship win in baseball, an appearance in football, and a deep run too in basketball. So I mean, everything he did for that school is not to be taken lightly. But I mean, as you said too, Anthony, these are all guys that played with him too. These are all guys that played under the system too. And as much as you say Cam's special too, that system is also what helped him become special too. The system that he was in for football, the system he was in for baseball helped him become successful. So you got to figure that same system that made Cam successful in football for all these years is going to make these same young men successful in the same ways, you would think. Maybe not to the extent, maybe some are just as special, maybe some are even more special than Cam. We don't know that, but you know that the system in place has bred success before, and you can count on the same thing going forward, I think.
Yeah, and you know, it goes from the top. I mean, the top up. I mean, the coaching staff and the athletic department breed culture that lends itself to success.
Yeah, and I mean, exactly. I mean, this is a team too. I mean, this success has just recently started coming, but I mean, it's a culmination of everything that they've been working for all these years, and it finally culminated in a state championship, a baseball state championship, I believe the first in that school's history too. So it just shows how building into these programs can really pay off in the end, and you see how much JFK is building into their program. And football, they came all the way to the front door of the dance. They weren't able to come through and come away with the win, but you know that we were not satisfied just knocking on the door last year, and they want to come away with some hardware this year.